Happy New Year, my friends. Oh my goodness, 2025. I don't know about you, but 2024 was creeping really, really slowly for me. And then there were moments where it was like, dang, where is the year gone? And I'm so excited to be here again, another day, another year, another opportunity to talk and converse with you. And for our very first episode of the new year, I have something very special for you. This episode is near and dear to my heart because it talks about something that is very important that I have struggled with my entire life. And I cannot wait for you to hear this powerful interview so that you can overcome and learn some of the tools that I used and how other women are overcoming this same syndrome so that we can be our best, healthiest, brightest selves. So stay tuned. Check me out on the other side of the intro and welcome our guests for this first episode of the Rainbow Bridge podcast of 2025. Welcome to the Rainbow Bridge podcast, where we bring the word of God to the lost and the LGBTQ. I'm your host, Nayshondra Mercer, a best-selling author, master trainer, and leadership coach, but you can call me Coach Nay. Each Sunday, we embark on a journey of faith, acceptance, and spiritual growth through heartfelt discussions, inspirational stories, and biblical teachings. I aim to bridge the gap between your faith and your identity, offering a safe and affirming space for everyone without judgment, fear, or shame. Join me as we explore the divine love that transcends all boundaries and empowers you to live life as your true, authentic self. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Rainbow Bridge, my friends. I have a very, very special episode for you today. Today, we have a guest interview. And you already know I don't do a lot of guest appearances here on the Rainbow Bridge, but that means that when I bring somebody in, I got a special treat for you. And today I am so excited to introduce you to Miss Coach D, who is a spiritual and mindset coach for Eldest daughters and the CEO of the Sawyer online club. And I will let you take it from here, Coach D.
Hi, everyone. How are you today?
I'm so happy that you're here. So to give the audience a little bit of a background, Coach D and I met on Threads. So you want to tell them a little bit more about how that happened?
Of course. Just marketing, just networking, just looking to meet new people. And I'm not really big on social media. So getting into the Threads atmosphere was definitely a different bird, if you will. It was a different type of vibe, a different type of energy than everything that I had experienced with like Instagram and with like YouTube. I'm more of a communicator. I definitely am more of a writer. So just getting over into that Threads arena was it was a breath of fresh air. And one of the first few people that I came across on Threads was the brilliant Miss Coach Nay. And almost immediately I fell in love with you, with your brand, with your mission, with your purpose. And I just from there, I was just trying to figure out how can I get in Coach Nay's orbit? How can I want to be involved. I don't even know in what way yet. How can I be involved? Right. So I think we were following each other for like maybe a month or so. When I had an opportunity come up and I reached out and I'm like, hey, like, would you be open to this? And just us communicating back and forth it led to this moment. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have met you. I knew this was going to happen. I put that out there that I want to be in Coach Nay's orbit and it manifested. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
I love it. Yes. So I'm also new to Threads. And when I hopped on, I was like, I don't know if it's going to be like the other platform. And Threads was just so much more elevated in a way where there are so many other conscious people who are on that platform. And I don't remember what it was that I posted. I said something because sometimes I'll just, say what I'm thinking. And sometimes I'll second guess myself and I'm like, should I post that? But I had a day where I was like, you know what? It's going. And then I think you commented and you were like, are you about to be my new Threads bestie? And I said, yes, girl. Yes, I am. And
The recognition immediately.
Immediately. And from there, the relationship went over to Instagram. And then from there, we continued to just kind of converse. And I saw the work that you were doing with eldest daughters, something that we both have in common. I'm also an eldest daughter. And I was like, I love what Coach D is doing, because the eldest daughter conversation, I don't feel like has been had enough. And I love that you were just elbowing your way through and taking up all the space for us eldest daughters. And I'm so excited to have you bring your expertise and your experiences into this space so that we can shine more light on oldest daughter syndrome, what it is, how it shows up in us, and how it impacts not just ourselves, but also our families, and what that means for us as trailblazing Black women in this world. So tell the audience a little bit more about your inspiration for starting the Sawyer online club, and then also the work that you're doing on your blog.
Oh, absolutely. It's something that you brought up briefly in that the experience of being an eldest daughter is not something that is talked about enough. It briefly sparked a little fire, a little outrage, right? On TikTok. I want to say it was last year when a psychologist, I want to say, actually coined a phrase to lump in all of the commonalities between all of the eldest daughters that she's worked with. Things like constantly putting other people's needs before their own, struggling with setting boundaries and saying no, feeling overwhelmed by responsibility, perfectionism, resentment and anger, stress and anxiety, and even identity challenges, right? So when she first brought this up, the internet caught on fire and so many eldest daughters came out of the woodworks and were like, yo, someone finally can see me. I'm not crazy. Like I'm loving this. Right. But that fire, it sparked, it burned bright for a little moment and then it kind of dimmed. My work in coaching as a coach / mentor, I began to notice just in my own journey of healing from all of the things that are associated with eldest daughter syndrome, that not only did I identify with it, but I can also identify it in all of the women that were closest to me. There's this phenomenon between eldest daughters where we all tend to gravitate towards each other. If you have one eldest daughter, you can bet if she has 5 friends, you can bet at least 3 of those are also going to be eldest daughters. And so in my coaching practice and in my mentoring practice with working primarily with eldest daughters, I started to notice and be able to recognize, okay, you know what? These things are applying here. And these things seem to be the bedrock for why these women have reached a plateau in their lives, or how they found themselves in a position where they can't see beyond what they can see. If I can find a way to address these things with these eldest daughters, help them to regain their confidence, help them to boost their self-esteem, help them to be able to disassociate or detach in a way from their role as being an eldest daughter, and help them to step more fully into embracing and accepting their own individuality, and instead start to pursue some of their own dreams, goals, aspirations throughout life, then we can break that barrier that exists between eldest daughters and the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth borns, and all of the things that she wants to accomplish. As far as my inspiration for starting the Sawyer Club, I aspire to be a magazine editor. I aspire to start a magazine, and I really love writing. It's my go-to medium. Like I said, with Threads, I fell in love with it almost immediately because it is a writing app, right? You get to share your thoughts. You get to engage back and forth with people. And the two kind of marry into each other with me wanting to have that magazine because, of course, there's a lot of eldest daughters who are business owners. A lot of eldest daughters, once they hit things like corporate burnout, or once they feel like they've reached the tops of their heads have begun to reach that glass ceiling and they can't break through, they decide, you know what, my mission, my purpose is not done here. I'm going to break through it, but I'm going to break through it on my own. So I said, I would like to bring in more eldest daughters, more business owners, more entrepreneurs. I want to bring a spotlight to them. I want to help amplify their voices across all platforms, across all mediums. I want to help give visibility for them. I want to help break open that door for them in doing the magazine style. So my blog is just like an introduction, if you will. My website is an introduction, if you will, to things that are going to come in the future.
That's amazing. Amazing. And I love your threads, and I absolutely love reading all the articles that you've been doing with all the eldest daughters. You definitely have a way with words. And I had the honor, the listeners, y'all are the first to hear this, that I sat down with 2 separate interviews with Coach D, and she is going to be publishing an article about moi and my journey as an eldest daughter. And I cannot wait for you all to read that. So tell me more about what it's been like connecting with these eldest daughters and writing their stories for the world to hear.
It's been really interesting because when I put up the blast or the post that I was looking for, Black women, entrepreneurs, creatives, artists, leaders of nonprofit organizations, overall just movers and shakers. The only requirement was that you be a Black woman. And that was really stemmed from the conversations that were being had after the results of the latest presidential election. How can I help women get their stories out to be seen and to be heard, and help further their agendas in building their businesses and creating more sustainable workplaces to be able to bring on other Black women? So the only requirement when I put out that initial thread, when I started promoting this at first, was that you just needed to be a Black woman that was doing something, right? Interestingly enough, every Black woman that I've spoken to since then has so happened to be an eldest daughter. And I love that, right? It's bringing all those eldest daughters to me, and in working with all of them and with having them share their stories with me, the commonalities are still right there. They're still at the forefront. We don't have to dig very far to hear how they were forged through the fire in order to become who they are. And every eldest daughter that I've come across, she is a leader in her own right, regardless of the field that she's in. Also, interestingly enough, all of the eldest daughters that I've met are not only leaders in their own right, they've also taken up the charge to go out and help others. Every eldest daughter that I've met, that I've interviewed, regardless of her industry, her mission and her purpose is to serve and to help others, to encourage and to support and to bring visibility not only to the issues that exist within the eldest daughter community, but also to help other women break those barriers. Everyone has a mission to get ahead of the game. It's like, oh, I may not have learned this thing until I was 40. I may not have learned this thing until I was 35. I want to reach back now, and I want to start helping women that are coming up before me so that they don't have to go through these things for as long as I've gone through these things. I want to try to get in there and help stop or prevent them from hitting that burnout, because I know what it was for me when I hit that level of burnout. So that's been amazing, right? To see that the eldest daughters have now reclaimed their power from feeling forced to overgive and overextend and to fix and to save and to cape. And now that they've reclaimed their autonomy, they're deciding that, you know what, this is still a very much big part of my core of who I am, of how I want to show up in the world. But now I can do this from a place of my excess instead of out of my deficit.
I love that. And as you were speaking about eldest daughters assuming the role and taking the charge of being responsible for those that come behind them, those who have hit that glass ceiling and want to go past that have seen that breaking that glass ceiling still calls for them to still help others that are coming behind them, but in a different capacity, in the way of, I don't want you to have to go through this in the same way that I did. So let me help you along the way, sis. And so I know you and I had spoken briefly about how there's this pipeline from eldest daughters, from being sisters, being the quote unquote second wife to the mother, Or in my case, I did come from a 2-parent household. I served as the other parent with both my mother and my father together. And so talk some to our audience about what that looks like when our eldest daughters have taken their role in the family and gone into the pipeline of being in the help fields and the ways that they're choosing to show up in that space.
Give me a second. Let me digest that. Let me parse that. So eldest daughters are born leaders. And it was something very interesting that you actually brought up when we were interviewing for your piece that's going to be published soon. A part of the expectation that's placed on the eldest daughter, just being the firstborn, the first one in the environment, a part of that expectation is placed on her, but then a part of that expectation is actually just in her. So when we're children, as the firstborn, right? As a child, you're looking to the people that are in your environment. You're looking at your environment. You're learning from what you see. And this process starts almost immediately because as a baby, you have to figure out, how can I signal these people to let them know that I'm uncomfortable? How can I signal these people to let them know that I'm hungry or that I have a need that needs to be met? And so you learn to start mimicking that behavior. With eldest daughters, there's no older sibling to look up to model the behavior of a child. So as an eldest daughter, almost from birth, the only role models that you have are your parents. And that's where I feel like that inherent, that it's built in me. It just comes from me. It is a part of my identity because I've been modeling the behavior of my parents since I was a very small child. So it's not that there's an issue with the level of responsibility or the expectations or anything like that. These are all admirable traits, and it's what leads us all to become the great leaders that we are, because we have our full-grown parents who's lived a life full of experiences to model behavior and to model approaches to different things. And we pick that up, right? The disconnect comes when, okay, I'm already modeling you, but you're pushing me, or you may be pushing me beyond my capacity. And in doing so, parents want the best for us. I'm gonna go back. Our parents want the best for us. And it's not as if they're looking at us and they're like, how do I make this militant person to come in and take care of all of our problems? It's not like I'm looking to turn this person into a third parent intentionally, or even a second parent in some instances, right? It's really, they have this wealth of knowledge and they want you to be fully prepared, just like eldest daughters. We grow up, we live a life of experiences, and we want to find a way to reach back, and we want to help those and help them not hit those same roadblocks. Same for our parents, right? They give us a lot of this information. We have this inherent need to want to be of service, to want to help, to want to release the burdens. But when things get to a point where the parent may have lost their boundary in that, and they start leaning on that eldest daughter a little too much for her age bracket, it leads the eldest daughter into situations of burnout. It leads eldest daughters into people pleasing. It leads a lot of eldest daughters into narcissistic relationships. Right? So it's eventually getting to a point as an eldest daughter, because we all will eventually get there. Hopefully we all eventually get there, but we all will eventually get to a point where we realize I no longer have an identity of my own. My entire identity is now wrapped up in how can I be of service to my family, and not how can I be of service to myself. And once we recognize that, and once we start to break that pattern, that I feel like that's what fills the eldest daughter with that need. Because again, it's not that she doesn't want to help. It's not that she doesn't want to be of service. It's not that she doesn't want to reach back. She just wants to be able to do that on her own terms. She wants to be able to use her own voice and use her own skill set to be able to approach things in a way that feels authentic to her, and not a way that's been dictated and demanded down to her, if that makes sense.
No, makes total sense. I mean, like you said, eldest daughter is a natural born leader. She's literally born into a leadership role. It's not one that we have chosen. And psychology has lots of science and data to back up the facts of how your birth order impacts who you become. And just like you're saying, a lot of eldest daughters have that innate desire to help and to want to reach back and to bring you along. But it gets complicated, like you said, when you're being asked to do more than you know how to do. And it may not be that you will never learn to do it. It's just that because you were quite literally the first one, you don't have another example outside of your parents. And that can dictate a lot about what you learn in your capacity, depending on what your household looks like, whether you come from a 2-parent household or a single parent household, or if your home is disruptive. The things that you are going to see in those kinds of environments, the ones that are dysfunctional or chaotic and they're unstable, they may not always be the best traits that you pick up either. And so while we're born into this space of natural born leadership, depending on what your parents are modeling for you, you can also pick up some toxic traits. And we see that a lot of that, as you mentioned already, is shared amongst eldest daughters, which is we people please. We quickly learn to read our parents and what they need, and then we begin to try to control them by controlling ourselves in the dynamic. And that's where the people pleasing come in. That's when you know, oh, mama came home today. She got a full attitude. Like, I ain't even get off the bus good. I don't know what's wrong with her today. So what you going to do? You're going to make sure that you cook, you clean. You're going to make sure that your siblings, your younger siblings ain't getting on her nerves, or if it's your daddy getting on his nerves. And so now you are maneuvering yourself within this bubble so that it don't pop.
Exactly.
And that is the dilemma.
Yeah, you become hyper vigilant, and I love that you bring that up because it's something that I wrote briefly about, and it's also something that I'm planning to touch on in my masterclass later on this afternoon. The boundary setting with the parents, right? The boundary setting, especially when you're still living with your parents. And a lot of the inability to set your boundaries with your parents is if you go back and you actually look at the dynamics that's going on in your household. If you look at your relationship, your mom's relationship with her mom, or your mom's relationships with her sisters. As children, we're picking up and we're recording all of that. So in addition to picking up the leadership, in addition to picking up the resilience, in addition to picking up the determination, the problem solving, the critical thinking, we're also picking up, noticing a pattern of, okay, well, I see my mom is constantly stressed out and frustrated, and she says that she never has any money and she can't spend time with taking care of herself. But every time her sister calls, I'm watching her pour from her already empty cup. She's borrowing from others to fill her cup to pour into her sister's cup. And so that gets programmed in us as eldest daughters. And so when we grow up in that dynamic, when we start to lead our own lives, we start to mimic those same behaviors. We start to overextend. To your point about the hypervigilance, right? The hypervigilance is just because of the lack of a demonstration of boundaries. It's also a part of that, assuming the role, assuming the responsibility, assuming the expectation, because your mom or your dominant parent, right, may not have been able to articulate their emotions and been able to separate, okay, I'm having a tough day. They can't even see that you're being hypervigilant and going to go do these things and be able to stop and pull you aside and say, hey, it's not your job to manage my emotions for me. I don't need you to do these things. But you care about your dominant parent. You want them to be comfortable. You care about your younger siblings. And so you'll start to, okay, well, I don't want her to be upset about this. I don't want him to be upset about this. So let me just do all of these things. And it creates this hypervigilance due to a lack of boundaries being modeled, and most likely throughout your entire family dynamic. You don't have anyone that is demonstrating what healthy boundaries looks like, especially in the family dynamics where it's a lot of eldest daughters back to back. You have a lot of firstborn daughters back to back. That type of thing tends to manifest. So yeah, that's definitely one of the things that I'll be hitting on the masterclass. And one of the things that I wrote about, that empath and narcissistic relationship, that connection. Every time you become hypervigilant in an attempt to manage your mother's emotions, every time you set a boundary in order to manage your mother or try to change or fix whoever that dominant parent is, you're playing right into your own demise. And the only way to get out of it is to start setting boundaries for you and allowing other people to manage their own emotions.
Absolutely. And that is a heightened level of emotional intelligence that we're talking about here, of being able to say, these are my emotions. These are my feelings. It is no one else's responsibilities. If I'm a parent, it is not my children's responsibilities to help me feel better. It is literally my role. Parenthood in itself is a ministry. Lord bless those people that have chosen to do it.
Bless them.
Because parenthood will teach you patience and discipline and kindness and long suffering. It's going to teach you all these things because you have to manage yourself while still managing the child rearing. And that can be difficult for any parent. And so these are traits that we tend to pick up as eldest daughters. And something that I know for both myself and you and I have talked about this as well. It doesn't just affect us in our family dynamics. We take this into the workplace as well. So Coach D, talk some about how eldest daughter syndrome shows up in the workplace.
My favorite topic. I actually was just talking to a girlfriend about this yesterday. I don't know who coined this phrase, but it's everywhere you go, there you are. You cannot show up any differently at home, in your relationship, and at work. So eldest daughters, and it's another one that comes to mind is eldest daughters have a tendency to boundary down. Eldest daughters have a tendency not to boundary up. A little bit about what I mean by that. If an eldest daughter is in an environment or in a circle of people where she has the permission to set boundaries, it feels safe to set boundaries. She may have started off setting soft boundaries with these people, and they don't give any resistance, any pushback, any type of negative energy, right, to her setting those small boundaries. She'll gravitate more towards those people, and she will be able to set those boundaries real quick off the bat. Think about your best friend, the person that you've chosen to be your best friend. Think about that one work colleague who you tend to work very, very well with, right? They're well adjusted, they're emotionally mature. You are able to set boundaries with them without even realizing that it's what you're doing. And then later when someone calls it out, it's like, oh yeah, I do know how to set boundaries, right? But an eldest daughter, when she finds herself in an environment with authority figures, an eldest daughter, when she finds herself in an environment with a supervisor, with another parent, someone who's older or someone who she's been told or who she assumes has more authority in a space, she won't set those boundaries because a part of her programming, a part of her training, a part of her rearing is growing up is you respect your elders. Children are supposed to be seen and not heard. All of those, right? So an eldest daughter with her people pleasing, an eldest daughter with her lack of boundaries, an eldest daughter with her hypervigilance, an eldest daughter with her fear of criticism, an eldest daughter with all of those characteristics, right? When she shows up in the workplace, what that's going to look like is as soon as she walks into the workplace, it starts a process. So when you get there, it's the honeymoon phase and everything's great. Just like in your childhood, right? As a baby, everything's great because you don't know what's going on. It's the lack of awareness of what's going on in the environment. And then the longer that the eldest daughter sits there, she'll start to notice certain patterns and certain traits. That's not to say that every workplace is necessarily a toxic workplace, but it can become one for an eldest daughter because she has a hesitancy to set boundaries. So when she finds herself in a workplace that does not value diverse opinions, especially a Black eldest daughter, as a Black woman in a workplace, we're already coming up against so many institutional systemic biases and issues, right? But then you bring a Black eldest daughter in there. If she falls herself into a workplace that may happen to be toxic or not, it will quickly become toxic because she's going to be too afraid to set boundaries. If she tries to speak up when she first starts working there, because it's a new environment, most eldest daughters will initially make the attempt. They'll try to start, hey, this isn't working for me. Hey, this is too heavy. Depending on what she's met with on the back end, she'll now fall into silencing. If it's not positive feedback, it'll fall into silencing. If she's not feeling fully heard, those supposed to be constructive criticisms won't feel constructive. They'll now feel like attacks. She'll start internalizing a lot. If her coworkers are not able to manage their own emotions, it's just like her dynamic with her parent. So she's going to come in and she's going to start being hyper vigilant. Oh, you know what? You're stressed out here. I'll take this on. Oh, you need help with this. I'll take this on. She'll just start collecting projects to make everybody happy. And eventually she will morph her workplace into an environment where everybody's happy. Everybody's calm because she's found a way to control that environment. And the way that she controls that environment is internalizing and taking on way more than what she needs or what's supposed to be hers. And what does that inevitably lead us out to? Burnout. That leads us to autoimmune diseases. That leads us to heart disease. Black women are leading the charge with heart disease. That leads to diabetes. I know a lot of people speak a lot about diet. A lot of people speak about our coping mechanisms. Our vices are the things that lead us into diabetes. But I really feel like all of these things stem from a brain issue, from a cognitive issue. When you're taking on too much, those coping mechanisms help you get there, but it all originates with your thought processes. When you're taking on too much, those coping mechanisms that you're reaching to, those are the things that are aiding you in getting these autoimmune diseases. So for eldest daughters, it's very important whether in work environments, whether in romantic relationships, whether in relationships with her friends, relationships with her families, it's very important for eldest daughters to take a step back, whatever that looks like for you. Take a step back and really take a good look at yourself. Figure out what it is inside of you that is driving you to these patterns and behaviors. A lot of it is conditioning and a lot of it is programming. What's the thing that's been going around on TikTok? What is it? You're not responsible for your traumas, but you are responsible for healing them.
Yeah.
Being able to recognize your own codependent nature based off of it's a survival mechanism, right? You had to learn how to navigate in those environments. Well, as an adult, we big in here. We grown in here now. We don't have to lean on those same survival mechanisms. So being able to sit down and reckon with yourself and figure out where does this stuff stem from and how is it perpetuating itself throughout the different themes of my life, and what changes do I need to make internally in order to break this cycle and moving forward. That's really the only way that eldest daughters are going to stop finding themselves in periods of burnout in corporate environments, at any type of work environment, in their relationships and with their families. You have to get to know you and start unraveling those patterns.
Absolutely. And that is where the healing work comes in. And it can be so hard, especially if you're, as an eldest daughter, you are the first one, you are the leader, and no one else has modeled this for you. So it can be really hard for you to start putting in those boundaries and to know what to do to overcome burnout. And you and I both have experienced that. And I share about that in my book, Awareness Put Me On. And you've talked about that also on your blog. And I know that you're going to be teaching that even this afternoon. So for those eldest daughters who are like, enough is a freaking enough. I'm tired of being burnt out with my family, and I don't want to go to family gatherings, and I don't want to talk to my mama, and I'm tired of my sister and my brother calling me for money every time they decide they want to blow their rent money at the club. And even I'm tired of always being the person that has to pick up an extra project just because my coworker don't know how to keep a deadline. For those women who are ready to change, who have recognized that the way that they do one thing is how they do everything, and that how they show up is how they show up, how can they get help for themselves, whether that's from you or anyone else, so that they can heal? And also, I'd love for you to talk to us about your masterclass and how our audience can get in contact with you.
Absolutely. I tend to speak a lot from my own experience with realizing when enough is enough and something has to change. The very first thing that I would recommend to any eldest daughter to do if she's tired and she's ready to break out that cycle, it's going to sound cliche, but you need a journal, babe. You need a journal.
Period.
And I recommend, and I know this is probably, take this with a grain of salt, if you will. I say get you a journal before you get you a therapist. Get you a journal before you get you a coach. Get you a journal before you get you a mentor. Because what I've found with a lot of eldest daughters, or I've seen in a lot of eldest daughters, is you don't even know what's wrong. You can't even put a name on it. You want someone to be able to identify and to relate to you, but you haven't sat down long enough. You haven't you haven't done any meditation to actually hear what's going on in you. A lot of eldest daughters, when they're still caught up in their cycle, it's very much so a reactionary state. She said something to me, so I have to say something to her. There's a lack of understanding why is this even triggering you? Why is this even bothering you? So the first thing I would recommend for any eldest daughter who's ready to start breaking that cycle is get a journal. Get a journal and just start writing. I can't even give you a starting point to start writing because every eldest daughter's journey is so different. But just that process of dedicating some time to go into a 5, 10, 15-minute meditation, let go of the worries of today, sit down, lock yourself in a room, lock yourself in a closet, put yourself in the bathroom, sit in your car. A lot of people love sitting in their car after work. Sit in your car in silence and just let those thoughts run. I know a lot of people, when they think about meditation, they think about, oh, I'm not supposed to have any thoughts. No, that's something that you work up to. When you first start that meditation, there's going to be a lot of brain chatter that's going on in the background, and it's going to just flood you. And you're like, oh, but I have to quiet my brain. No. And the only way to get to quiet in that brain is to let that chatter run. It's been needing to run. It's been needing to process, and you've been silencing it this whole time. So now that you're giving it an opportunity, let that cycle run. And as that cycle runs, get out of your car or journal in your car. Start journaling. Once you get to understand who you are, what's upsetting you about the things, what's upsetting you about the dynamics, what you're feeling and where those feelings come from, then start looking for a therapist, then start looking for a coach, then start looking for a mentor, and really start to get into how to bring yourself back to wholeness. As far as my masterclass today is from 2 to 6. And it's on eldest daughters learning to set boundaries with their parents. When we hear about setting boundaries, every person out here is talking about, you need to set boundaries. You need to set, I have boundaries. Where are your boundaries? Check on your boundaries. We hear that word a lot, but what may not be coming across is, what are the underlying pain points for why you're struggling with setting these boundaries? People who grew up in an environment where boundaries are a commonality, they don't tend to have these same issues, especially the issues that eldest daughters have with setting boundaries. For an eldest daughter that struggles with setting boundaries, more than likely, if she looks backwards, her mom doesn't have boundaries. Her grandma doesn't have boundaries. Her great grandma doesn't have boundaries. None of these people have any. So she will literally be the first person in her dynamic that comes in and that's modeling a new pattern of behavior. And that means she's going to now be faced with generational blowback. You're not just going to get this from your mom, but because your mom has no boundaries with her mom, when you start setting boundaries with your mom, and your mom, if your grandma's still alive, is telling your grandma about how y'all had this conversation and she told me this, and now she's going to be looked at from that same lens that from her mom that she has been looking at with you. It's really a multi-generational thing going backwards. So in order to start unraveling that through this masterclass, we're going to explore what are some common rejections. If you have had difficulties with setting boundaries with people in the past, you know what those people are going to push back. You know the manipulation tactics, you know the gaslighting, you know what their immediate response is going to be when you set those boundaries. This masterclass is to help women bring that out to the front, and let's make a plan. We're going to plan this right now. I have situations with some people in my life when it's time for me to set a boundary, I can tell you what they're going to do before they even think to do it. And because I know that, I can build my plan on how I'm going to approach this. This is what I'm going to do. This is what it's going to look like. And then I have my tools in place. I have my systems in place to shut the things down and give me space to think and process beyond what's going on in the present moment. So that masterclass today, it will go over handling rejection. It will go over using I statements. It will go over how to set boundaries and say no assertively and not aggressively. And also for a lot of eldest daughters, being able to reckon with the ways that you may not realize that you are participating in your own demise.
There is a difference. Yes, I love that. So first step, eldest daughters, when you're ready to make a change, get you a journal. I love that. I'm a writer, as you know, you're a writer. And I feel like that's something that I see that's in common with a lot of eldest daughters. We need a place to put our stuff. And the journal is the first step. And I love that you gave that as the first step. I go through so many flipping journals. It don't make sense. Like, if somebody buys me one once a week, I still won't have enough, right? Like, I'm in that bad boy. And that is a great first step. And again, as you mentioned, get you a therapist, baby, then get you a coach and a mentor. I always say, outside of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, my holy trinity is get you a coach, a therapist, and a mentor, baby. You need all three. And I love the work that you are doing in your masterclass. And I'm so excited for you with that. I know it's going to be amazing this afternoon, and I cannot wait to see the impacts for the women whose lives that you are going to touch. So before we let our listeners go, Coach D, please let them know how they can find you, because something tells me you're going to be over here on the Rainbow Bridge in the Coach Nay world for a little minute. So let us know how we can get in contact with you.
Hey, I love that. Absolutely. So if anyone is ready, especially eldest daughters, if you are ready to start breaking those patterns, if you are ready to reclaim your life, you can reach out to me at my website, thesawyerclubonline.com. I'm also on all social medias at thesawyerclubonline.com.
And there you have it, Rainbow Bridge family. Coach D, thank you so much for being here today. It has truly been an honor and a privilege. And I know that this episode is going to touch so many other people in their hearts. And like I said, when we set our intention before we hit the record button, I know that they will be changed because of it. So thank you for being here. Rainbow Bridge family, that's another one for you. It's a wrap. You know I love y'all, and I'll see you here soon. And until next time, my friends, be safe and be well.
Let me see here. For retirement, I should think about income, investments, to start Medicare, and taxes, giving to charity, a plan for healthcare. What am I going to do?
Feeling overwhelmed? Our Retirement Rescue Toolkit is filled with resources to help you sort through your retirement questions. Text RETIRE to 803-882-2929 to get yours today. That's RETIRE to 803-882-2929. Securities offered through Arcadios Capital, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Arcadios Wealth. Preservation specialists and Arcadios are not affiliated through any ownership.
Worried about your future in tech? Master new skills, accelerate your team's impact, and redefine what's possible with Pluralsight. We're more than just another online learning platform. We're shattering the skills gap and shaping future generations of technologists. Transform your work. Transform your team. Ready to tap in? Visit us at pluralsight.com to learn more.